In this tutorial, I'd like to talk about the effects panel in Adobe Premiere. And to get the effects panel open, you'll find it over here in the project pane. If you flip through these tabs, and if you go to Window, you can also find it under Effects. And what I'm going to do with these tutorials that pertain to the effects, I'll probably do at least two of them. So this one that you're seeing here right now, this will be an intro and show you how to apply all of these different effects. And then I'll follow up on one more that talks in more detail about specific effects that you'll use and also plugins, because there are a ton of plugins out there. Some of them are free, some of them you pay for, but they can give you some other really interesting to effects with the video. So when I talk about an effect, basically anything that changes the original appearance of the video could be classified as an effect. Most often you're going to see an effect would be like if you change it to black and white or adjust the color, the contrast, things like that. So I've got a sample project open here. This was another video contest. This one is for the Nutra Ninja blender, and I don't know if I won anything on this one yet. I've yet to win one of these contests, but I have received a couple honorable mentions and a free blender, and that's about it. But they are kind of fun to do, you know, if you have some spare time just as a hobby and you want to enter these contests. Now that you know a little bit about video editing and production, you know, you can do that. So what I would do here, you know, if I look through my footage, maybe I'd determine that some of this footage is too dark, or the contrast needs to be changed. You know, maybe it's too bright, too colorful. That happens as well, because you know, if you take your these new cameras that you have and you go shoot outside, sometimes it's just too bright. You know, it looks almost too colorful, and you might want to take it down just a little bit to make it look more like film. So that's the kind of things that the effects can do. So here's how you can apply effects. You know, you may have something open here, and you know, you can apply an effect. Let me double click one of these. You can apply an effect to something that's open in your source, or you can apply it to the timeline. Usually what I do is apply it to the timeline. So if I am looking at, you know, my source footage, and I think, you know, I'm going to make a judgment to say, well, is this eventually going to work for me, or is it just too dark to be changed? So I'll probably make that judgment before I put it in the timeline. But if I edit into the timeline, you know, then I assume that I can fix it, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my effect directly in the timeline. So that's up to you, what I'm showing you here. Let's do a couple really simple ones so you can see how it works. So I'll go to my video effects, and I'll just drop down. So I'm on the effects panel. I'll just drop down with the little triangle here. You can double click if you'd rather do that. You know, you can change the view however you want to look at your effects. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's look at 2 or 3 different things here. First off, color correction is where you're going to find brightness and contrast. So if you want to apply any of these, all you have to do is drag and drop. So let's drag and drop right here. Alright, so we dropped that one right there. Now it didn't do anything. That's usually what's going to happen. You're not going to see anything. So in order to see this, you're going to want to double click on your clip in the timeline, or if you're dragging it up here, you can do that as well. You can drag it and drop it there. But you're going to want to go to the effect controls. Alright, so these are 2 different clips, by the way. You know, I just double clicked on one from the project, and what I'm showing you here is that you can drag this effect here, or you can drag it here in the timeline. Now I'm going to double click on the one that I dragged it to in the timeline. All right, there it is. Now check this out. You have a panel or another tab called Effect Controls, and that's where you're going to find what you just dragged and dropped. It already had a brightness and contrast on there. Let me just close that one now. And what I'll do actually is I'll delete this one so as not to confuse you. So I dragged and dropped the brightness and contrast on there, and that's what it looks like. And you see that there's a brightness contrast setting. Now you may have to expand this. Now it's going to be impossible for me to go over every single setting. I mean, if you look at just this one setting, you've got a couple different areas you could apply a mask, so that you could mask out just one section of the video to adjust the brightness contrast. You also have 2 different sliders for the brightness and contrast. You can even apply keyframes, which I will do in a later tutorial as well. So you could have it gradually get brighter, or gradually have the contrast increase or decrease. So there's so much to do here. Once you get the steps down, what I'm showing you, you can pretty much figure it out yourself. The other thing that I do is if I see something that I don't know how to use, just Google it. I mean, that's obvious, but that's how I figure out a lot of this. If I get stuck on anything, like I don't know exactly how to use the Luma corrector here, just Google it, and it's really easy to find the answer that way. I'm not really telling you anything new there, am I? Okay, look, if I drag this slider here, brightness contrast changes. Okay, actually that's just the brightness, and there's what contrast does. So you can get some really interesting effects. Now, probably the most important thing I will tell you here is that you need to start with fairly high quality video to begin with. That's why the most important thing you can do is set up your lighting, your shots correctly to begin with. Do not rely on this to fix poor video. I mean, yeah, if your video is a little bit dark, you can increase the brightness, bring it up a little bit, maybe the contrast as well, make it look a little better. But the point is that if your video is just a poor quality to begin with, you're not going to be able to work some kind of miracle with these settings. They really work best if you have decent quality video to begin with. So that's brightness contrast. Now, if you click this little FX right here, that toggles it on and off. So when I do that, you can really see it working there in the top right of your screen. And then you can also even increase this here, and then you'll get the slider if you want to have a little more control over it, just like that. If you want to completely get rid of it, you can just control click on the effect itself and click cut, and that will get rid of it. You can copy paste this stuff as well. If you get a setting that you like, copy paste it to another clip. Alright, so you can check out the different settings here in brightness contrast, and then you can see what you can do with that. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Let's look at image control. Here's your black and white. So if you want to drop this into black and white, okay, again, I'll just drag and drop here to the next one, or to that one. Okay, and then there's black and white, and that just automatically applies an effect. The effect of black and white, so that the whole thing is now black and white. If you wanted a different degree of black and white, you would need to apply a mask to it. So if I did apply a mask here, you can adjust the corners. Actually, let me do just a section of this so you can see what I'm talking about here. So if I do a little mask, and you probably know what a mask is, it's just going to reveal a certain area of the screen, and in this case it's going to make it black and white. Here's the opacity of it. So if I drag this up and down, you can see it actually changes it to black and white. Let me get another clip here so you can see that a little bit better. Let's use this one. Okay, so let me drag black and white here. It's colorful, it's some fruit, so you can see it a little better. Now it's black and white, so I dragged it from here, right here, onto the timeline. Let me double click it. Okay, here I'll go to Effect Controls now, and let me drag down to black and white. Again, toggle it on and off so you can see that it's working. I already had a couple different filters on there. Okay, black and white, on and off. Now, if I grab the polygon mask and put this right here, you can see that I could actually put in more points if I want, but you can see that actually makes just a section of that black and white. Now, if you wanted to do just the whole thing, you could just drag these to the corner, over top of your entire thing, over top of your entire video, and then you could select a degree of the opacity. Okay, so if I change the mask opacity, you can see if I drop that up or down, now you can control that a little bit better. So for a black and white, if you wanted to just add a certain percentage of it, that would help you remove a little bit of color, make it look a little more cinematic so that the colors don't pop quite as much on your screen. So if you look down through this list, you'll find things like the key effects, and that would be where you would drop out colors. And again, these kind of detailed effects are things that I'll come back to in a different tutorial. Just wanted to show you the basics here of how you apply these, but that would be like what they do with the weather, where they drop out the background. So all kinds of different things you can use with that. There's noise, grain, there's There's sharpness, there's stylize. If you check out the stylize, there's embossing. Some of these are like Photoshop, solarize, texturize, all kinds of things like that. Now, if you scroll on down here, of course, you'll see your transitions. Here's a video that allows you to put like time code on there. And then this is a plugin. So this is what a plugin looks like. It shows up, as a separate little bin here. And this is one that I downloaded. I'll show you how to get something like this in the next tutorial. But this one allows me to do like some automatic filters that make it look more cinematic or desaturated, or give me like a sepia tone, things like that. So plugins can be pretty cool if you find them. If you can find some good ones. But that's about all I can think of here, just to give you an introduction to applying the effect. So one more time here, just to show you this. If I do the image control black and white, I've got two choices. I can drag to a clip that's open here, which may be the clip in the timeline, or I can drag it directly to the timeline itself, either one. Now, if I look through my project footage and I know that this clip here, the whole clip, maybe I want to adjust the effects with that, then I can go ahead and just do it in my source footage right there. But if I already have it in the timeline, then I would drag it and drop from the effects to the timeline. Once you have an effect on there, double click to make sure that you have the correct clip open and go to your effect controls, and then you can start to work with these a little bit. They're a little bit tricky if when you first work with them. For example, the black and white one requires a mask to really get in there and edit it. But some of them just have a little percentage slider that allows you to apply a certain effect to your video. And then if you want to just toggle on and off, just use that little FX. If you want to get rid of it, just right click on the name itself and cut, and that'll get rid of it. You can apply multiple effects to the same clip. Some of them have to be rendered. Check out, this has a red line here for the rendering. Tells me that I would need to select it, go up to my sequence and render it. Sequence render selection, and that would render that for me. But it still previews it fine. Just mean if I were going to export the video, then I'd have to select it and render it. So that's all I can think of here for this video, giving you an introduction to applying effects in Adobe Premiere.